Let's start this exercise by looking at a diagram. In this diagram, notice that we are looking at the order of operations. We have three different possibilities for our LAC calculations. In this example, notice that we have sum over sales, we have no partitioning, and we're looking at what is referred to as a calculation level of prefilter. I like to think of this as an order of operation. In other words, if I set a sum over with a prefilter calculation level, that means that all filters will be ignored. So, for example, in this case, our sales would ignore any filters. I could have a year filter where I'm looking at 2025 or 2024. This prefilter is simply going to cause that to be ignored. Another possibility is the sum over sales, open and close bracket, pre-ag. Now, the pre-ag will respect the filters, but it comes before aggregation. So if I change from 2025 to 2024 via a filter, then what I will see as a total using the pre-ag will change. However, the pre-ag happens before aggregation. Now, we're going to be looking at that in detail in the next exercise. Our focus in this exercise is both on the prefilter and on this very last option, which is the post-ag filter. This will respect all filters and all aggregation. Let's take a look in QuickSight at the Order of Operations tab within the LAC Exercises Starter. Notice the pivot table that's displaying category and subcategory sales. This is the Superstore data set that's in play. Let's create a couple of calculated fields. The first calculated field is total post-ag, and the calculation is sum over sum sales, open and closing empty brackets, so no partitioning, and post-aggregate filter, which means that filters are respected. In other words, the calculation runs after the filters are applied. I'll click on Save and then create another calculated field. Let's name this one Total Prefilter, and the calculation will be sum over sales, no partitioning, prefilter, which means the calculation will happen before any filtering. In other words, the filtering will be ignored. One important syntax difference to be aware of is that sales is not sum sales, it's just sales. When using prefilter, you may not use aggregation within the sum over. Let's save this calculation. Scrolling to the bottom of the data pane, let's click on Total Post-Ag and Total Prefilter to place those both on the values well. In the visualization, notice what displays. The total prefilter shows the total value for the entire data set, and it ignores any filtering. If I close down the Properties panel, you can see that I'm selected to view the year 2022. That is simply ignored by the total prefilter. However, if I click on the year 2023, you're going to notice that the total prefilter continues to ignore this, but the total post-ag will respect that filtering, and so on and so forth as I begin to click on these other options. If I click on the Select All option, the values will be identical between the two columns.